The phone rang at 6:12 a.m., that hour when the world is quiet, when bad news feels louder because there's nothing else to drown it out. I remember staring at the screen before answering. My sister's name glowed back at me. She never called this early. She never called unless she wanted something. I answered anyway. Hello. There was a pause, just long enough to feel intentional. Mom died last night, she said. No greeting, no hesitation, just the sentence. Flat, clean, delivered like a receipt. I sat on the edge of my bed, my feet touching the cold floor. My mind didn't race the way people say it does when tragedy strikes. It went completely still. I'm sorry, she continued, and I could hear it then, something hiding under her voice. Not grief, control. The funeral is Friday. I swallowed, my mouth felt dry, like I hadn't spoken in days. Then she said the part she had clearly rehearsed. She left everything to me, the house, the accounts, everything, you get nothing. There it was, the real reason for the call. I waited, not because I was shocked, but because I wanted to hear what victory sounded like in her voice. It came out in the smallest ways. A breath held too long, a pause placed just right. She expected something from me. A crack, a plea, maybe anger. Instead, I smiled. It was quiet, she couldn't see it, but she heard it. You're taking this well, she said carefully. Am I replied. Another pause, this one wasn't planned. Yes, she said finally. I thought you'd react. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was rising, turning the sky pale orange. Somewhere outside, a bird kept singing like nothing had changed. I guess I'm just tired, I said. She exhaled, relieved. Well, I wanted you to hear it from me first. Of course you did, I thought. Friday, she repeated. Don't be late. The call ended. I lowered the phone slowly, my hand steady, my heartbeat normal. And then I turned around. My mother was standing in the doorway. Alive, wrapped in her old gray sweater. Hair pulled back the way she always did when she was thinking. Her face wasn't weak, it wasn't confused. It was sharp. She really said it, Mom asked. I nodded, word for word. Mom smiled, but it wasn't warm. That means she took the bait. My sister had always believed she was smarter than everyone else in the room. Growing up, she was the loud one, the confident one. Teachers loved her. Neighbors praised her. Relatives compared me to her like it was a favor. Why can't you be more like your sister? I learned early that silence made people underestimate you. She learned early that charm could cover almost anything. By the time we were adults, the distance between us felt permanent. She lived close to Mom. I lived far enough to be irrelevant. Or so she thought. Mom had called me late one night. I need you to come visit, she said. Her voice was calm, but I knew her too well. Calm was what she sounded like when she had already decided something important. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing, she said, then paused. And everything. When I arrived, Mom looked fine. Not sick, not fragile, not dying. You don't look like someone who needs help, I said. That's the problem, she replied. She poured tea and sat across from me. Her hands were steady. Your sister has been asking questions, she said, about my will. That didn't surprise me. She's been very attentive lately. Mom continued, suddenly cooking, suddenly worried, suddenly interested in documents she's ignored for years. I felt something tighten in my chest. She thinks I don't notice, Mom said softly, but I notice everything. She leaned forward. I want to test her. That was the moment I understood. My mother wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of being erased while still alive. The plan wasn't complicated. It didn't need to be. That's the thing about greedy people. They overthink for you. Mom would pretend her health was failing. Nothing dramatic, just enough doctor visits. Just enough pills left out on the counter. Just enough whispered conversations on the phone. She would talk about getting things in order. And she would let my sister see exactly what she wanted her to see. The will would be revised. On paper, everything would go to my sister. On paper, I want you to stay quiet, Mom told me. No calls, no messages, no visits once this starts. And if she takes it, I asked. Mom smiled. She will. Friday came fast. Too fast. I arrived at the church early and sat in the back. People whispered, heads turned. My sister stood near the front, dressed perfectly in black, greeting mourners like a host at a celebration she had planned for months. When she saw me, her lips tightened for half a second. Glad you came, she said. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I replied. The service began. She cried at the right moments, dabbed her eyes, held hands, played the role flawlessly. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her. The coffin sat at the front, closed, empty. After the final prayer, the lawyer stood. "There will be a brief reading of the will," he announced. My sister straightened. This was it, her moment. He cleared his throat. "Effective immediately. The previously submitted document is suspended pending confirmation of the testator." The room shifted. My sister frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," the lawyer said carefully, "that Mrs. is not deceased." Silence fell like a dropped glass. My sister laughed once, sharp, uncertain. "That's not funny," she said. The doors at the back of the church opened, and my mother walked in. Alive, watching, smiling. My sister turned slowly, her face drained of color. Mom spoke calmly. "You took everything I left you," she said, "including your humanity." The lawyer closed the folder. "And now," he added, "you get nothing." For a moment no one moved. Not the mourners, not the priest, not even my sister. It was as if the room itself needed time to understand what it had just witnessed. My sister's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes kept darting between the coffin and my mother, like her brain was desperately trying to correct a mistake reality refused to fix. This is sick," she finally said, her voice cracking. "You lied to everyone." My mother didn't raise her voice. "No," she replied calmly, "I let you lie to yourself." People began whispering. Confusion spread like smoke. Phones slipped quietly into hands. This wasn't grief anymore. This was a spectacle. "You said she was dead," someone murmured. "I heard it too," another added. My sister turned toward them, panic flashing across her face. "I thought she was," she snapped. The doctors said no such thing." My mother interrupted. "You never spoke to them. You never asked, you only asked about the will." That landed hard. I watched my sister's shoulders tense, her posture stiffening the way it always did when she felt cornered. She had spent her whole life talking her way out of trouble. This time, words wouldn't save her. The lawyer stepped forward again, his voice calm, practiced. "For legal clarity," he said, "the document naming you as sole beneficiary was a conditional draft." My sister's eyes widened. "Conditional?" "Yes," he continued. "It was created as part of a test requested by your mother, a test you failed." A few people gasped. My sister shook her head violently. "This is manipulation. This is abuse." My mother smiled gently. "No," she said, "this is consequence." She turned toward the crowd. "When I believed I was dying," she said, "my daughter stopped seeing me as a person. I became paperwork, property, a prize." Her voice trembled for the first time, but not from weakness. "I wanted to know who would mourn me," she continued, "and who would measure my life in square footage." No one spoke. My sister laughed again, but this time it sounded wrong. Too loud, too sharp. "So what?" she said. "You embarrass me." "Congratulations. Is that what this is about?" "No," my mother replied. "This is about protection." She turned and looked at me. "For him." My sister followed her gaze. Her eyes landed on me like knives. "You," she hissed, "you planned this." I didn't deny it. "I stayed quiet," I said. "You did the rest." She stepped toward me, anger flooding her face. "You always hated me," she said. "You were jealous." I shook my head slowly. "No," I said. "I was invisible, you just never noticed." That hurt her more than yelling ever could. We left the church shortly after. My sister stayed behind, arguing with the lawyer, her voice echoing through the empty space. By the time she caught up to us outside, my mother was already in the car. "You're not done," my sister shouted. "This isn't over." My mother rolled down the window. "Oh," she said softly, "it is." She handed her a folder. Inside were copies, audio recordings, text messages, bank requests, dates, times, signatures, evidence of every attempt my sister had made to pressure, manipulate, and rush the inheritance process. "Why?" my sister whispered, flipping through the pages. "Why would you do this?" My mother's answer was quiet. "Because if I had actually died," she said, "you would have destroyed him." She glanced at me. "And I won't allow that, not even for my own blood." Within weeks, everything unraveled. My sister's fiancé postponed the wedding, then canceled it. Her friends stopped calling. The family she had carefully convinced that she was the victim began asking uncomfortable questions. And the will, it was rewritten. Not in anger, not in revenge. In clarity. My mother divided her estate carefully. Charities, trusts, and one final decision. My sister received exactly $1. Enough to prove she was remembered. Not enough to forget why. She called me one night. Her voice was smaller now. "You think you won," she said. I thought about it for a moment. "No," I replied. "I think you showed us who you were." She was silent. Then quietly, "She was supposed to love me." I closed my eyes. She did, I said. That's why she stopped you. The line went dead. My mother still wears that gray sweater. Still sharp, still watching. Sometimes she smiles and says, "People reveal themselves when they think no one is looking." And every time she says it, I remember the sound of my sister's voice on the phone that morning. So confident, so certain, so wrong. People think punishment is loud. They imagine shouting, courtrooms, headlines, slammed doors. But the worst consequences arrive quietly. They sit beside you when the noise is gone. They whisper when there's no one left to impress. That's how it happened for my sister. After the church, after the will, after the whispers faded, there were no dramatic scenes left. Just silence. No calls from relatives. No invitations. No sudden check-ins. The same people who once laughed at her jokes now avoided eye contact. The same friends who praised her strength stopped replying. Greed has a smell. Once people recognize it, they never forget it. She moved out of the house she thought was already hers. The keys felt heavier than she expected when she dropped them into my mother's hand. "I'll need time," she muttered. My mother nodded. "Take all of it," she replied. That sentence hurt her more than anger ever could. The house didn't change. The furniture stayed where it was. The photos remained on the walls. The floors still creaked the same way they always had. But something else changed. Ownership. For years, my sister walked through those rooms imagining upgrades, renovations, resale value. She never once asked where memories lived. My mother did. She walked slowly, touching the door frames, smiling at things no one else noticed. She never liked this house, Mom said quietly. She liked what it was worth. I didn't answer. Some truths don't need witnesses. Month later, a letter arrived for my sister. Handwritten. From my mother. She asked me not to read it. But my sister told me what it said, later, when her voice finally cracked. "I loved you loudly. I loved him quietly. One of you listened. One of you counted. Love doesn't disappear when it's tested. It reveals itself." She folded the letter and put it away like it could burn her. "I didn't think she meant it," my sister whispered. That was the real tragedy. Money doesn't just buy things. It buys excuses. It buys patience from others. It buys forgiveness that isn't earned. When my sister lost the promise of inheritance, she lost all of that too. Her job performance slipped. Her confidence thinned. Her smile stopped reaching her eyes. She was no longer the successful one, just another person with a past everyone remembered. One night, she showed up at my door. No makeup, no performance, just tired. "I don't know who I am without it," she admitted. I leaned against the doorframe. "That's the problem," I said gently. "You thought it was who you were." She didn't argue. Weeks passed. Then months. Life softened again. My mother returned to her routines. Gardening, reading, watching old movies she pretended not to like. One evening, she sat beside me and spoke without looking up. "Do you hate her?" I thought about it. "No," I answered honestly. "I understand her." Mom nodded. "That's harder than hate." She reached for my hand. "You smiled on that call," she said. "Why?" I smiled again. Because she thought she'd already won. My mother laughed softly. Then we taught her the most expensive lesson of her life. When my mother finally rewrote everything, this time for real, it wasn't about punishment. It was about balance. I didn't receive everything. I received responsibility. Trusts were created. Charities supported. Future generations considered. My sister, she received something different. A clause. Access to family gatherings, photographs, memories conditional on respect. No money. Just choice. A year later, we stood in the same house. My sister came for dinner. She didn't brag. She didn't interrupt. She listened. When she left, she paused at the door. "I was wrong," she said. "Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just true." I nodded. That was enough. People always ask how I stayed calm that morning. How I smiled when everything was supposedly gone. The answer is simple. Because the moment she said, "You get nothing," I realized she had already lost. Money can be inherited. Character can't. People think the story ends when justice is served. It doesn't. Justice closes a door, but it doesn't decide what you do with the quiet that follows. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were no celebrations, no victory speeches, no moment where everything felt worth it. There was just space, and space forces you to feel things you've been postponing for years. My sister stopped calling for a while, not out of anger, out of shame. That kind of distance feels different, heavier, more honest. My mother noticed it too. "She's learning," she said one morning, stirring her tea. Learning hurts. One night I couldn't sleep. Not because I regretted what we did, but because I understood it too well. Greed doesn't start loud. It starts scared. Scared of being unseen. Scared of being ordinary. Scared of ending up with nothing after giving everything to an image. I realized something uncomfortable. If our roles had been reversed, if I had been praised more, noticed more, rewarded more, would I have done better? That question stayed with me. Healing doesn't arrive with announcements. It shows up in small, almost boring ways. My sister started asking real questions, not about money, but about memories. What was I like when I was little? Did mom really sit with me every night? Why don't I remember that? My mother answered patiently, not warmly, not coldly, truthfully. Some nights, my sister cried quietly at the kitchen table. No audience, no manipulation, just grief, real grief, for a version of herself she never became. It came months later. No preparation, no build-up. I'm sorry, she said, not followed by excuses, not softened by explanations. Just those two words. I know, I replied. That surprised her. I don't expect forgiveness, she added quickly. I know, I repeated. Forgiveness is not a transaction. It's a direction. And she had finally turned the right way. People often ask what I gained. The truth. I gained clarity. I learned that silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. That smiling doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it means you already understand the ending. And that family doesn't mean protection without limits. It means accountability with love. The house was eventually sold. Not for profit, for closure. Before it was emptied, we walked through it together. My mother, my sister, and me. No tension. No accusations. Just shared history. At the front door, my sister stopped. I never really saw this place, she admitted. I only saw what it could give me. My mother nodded. Most people do, she said. Until it's gone, years later. When my mother finally did pass, peacefully, honestly, there was no confusion. No fights. No surprises. Just letters. And one final truth that none of us expected. Because even after everything, she still had one lesson left to teach. When my mother died, it wasn't sudden. There was no chaos. No midnight phone calls. No rushed goodbyes. She left the way she lived. Prepared. We sat together in the hospital room. The lights low, the world quiet. She wasn't afraid, she looked. Finished, in the peaceful way. My sister stood on one side of the bed. I stood on the other. No competition. No tension. Just family. My mother looked at my sister first. You learned, she said softly. My sister nodded, tears sliding down without embarrassment. Then my mother looked at me. You understood, she said. I squeezed her hand. And then she was gone. The lawyer called us a week later. Same office. Same chair. Different air. There was no suspense this time. No drama. Just envelopes. One for me. One for my sister. Mine was thin. Hers was thicker. I noticed her hands shake as she held it. The lawyer spoke carefully. Your mother left behind more than assets, he said. She left intent. My sister opened her envelope first. Inside was a single letter. She read it silently, then out loud, her voice trembling. I didn't leave you money because I wanted you to earn your worth. Not prove it. I didn't leave you nothing because I hated you. I left you time. Time to become someone who doesn't measure love and inheritance. She broke down. Not loudly. Honestly, then I opened mine. Inside was a document. Not a will. A trust. Not for me. For her. My sister looked up, confused. The lawyer explained. Your mother placed the majority of her estate in a trust controlled by your brother, he said. Your access to it is conditional. My sister froze. Conditional, she whispered. Yes, he said, on conduct, growth, responsibility. I felt the weight settle on my chest. Not power. Duty. Outside, my sister stopped me. You could ruin me, she said quietly. You could control everything. I shook my head. No, I said. She trusted me not to. She nodded slowly. That was the moment she understood. The money was never the gift. Trust was, my sister changed. Not perfectly. Not overnight. But honestly, she worked. She failed. She rebuilt. And every time she earned something, it stayed. Because it was hers. One evening, years later, she looked at me and smiled. You know, she said, I used to think you were weak. I smiled back. And now I know you were just patient. People still ask about that phone call. The one where she said, Mom died last night, you get nothing. They ask how I smiled. I always give the same answer. Because the moment she said it, I knew the ending had already been writ, and it wasn't hers.